Hello guys and welcome to a new video. Hopefully you already have finished everything related to the topic sentence. You have completed that assignment and also the second assignment about the comparison between topic sentence and the main idea. I strongly recommend that you do that first before advancing in the topics because it's necessary that you know this differentiation and that you have already a conscious alternative and a conscious knowledge of the initial part, that is the topic sentence. So as I announced in the previous video, we are going to discuss right now some things relating to the supporting sentences or supporting sentence. Let's say that we're going to use plural in this case because the sentences, or sorry, the paragraphs that we are going to handle in this subject ideally will have 5 sentences: a topic sentence that we already discussed about, 3 supporting sentences, and a conclusion that we will discuss in the next video. So let's take a look at the slide number 14, and over there we have a definition of what can be a supporting sentence. No, so it just follows the introduction. Normally we are going to find the supporting sentences after the topic sentence, meaning that if we have the topic sentence in first location or in first place in the paragraph, most likely the first supporting sentence will be in second place. But then again, if the topic sentence is in the second or in the third place, so it's very likely, it's very possible that the supporting sentence is then in the number 4 or 5th in terms of order from one to the next, right? So it follows that topic sentence normally as we illustrate one point in the topic sentence, as we present an idea. The supporting sentences are going to help us develop that idea. So by means of facts, arguments, analysis, examples, statistics, numbers, any sort of information, these supporting sentences are going to develop such topic, right? So the most important part of the supporting sentences is to give details. Remember that we mentioned in previous videos that the topic sentence is very general and that it was a job of the supporting sentence to develop that idea. So if you remember the first paragraph that we discussed about, I think it was the one of the economic recession in the United States. So the first topic sentence talk about economic problems, and the other ones develop the idea. They mention, if I recall correctly, some topics about home difficulties, yes, housing, and about consumption, I think, and there was another one about jobs or unemployment, I think, right? So see, there are at least 3 supporting sentences over there developing the idea of economic problems. Same for any other topic. Yes, as I mentioned over there in the slide, a good number is 3, but there can be minimum 1. Let's imagine that we're talking about a paragraph that is very minimalistic, that is really short, or a paragraph in a novel that maybe is narrating something, but it's just wants to say something really small, not very ample. So in that case, a sentence or a supporting sentence in a paragraph would be okay. But remember, we're going to try to use 3 supporting sentences in these paragraphs that we're going to manage over here. It's really an easy concept. Sorry, there is not a lot to say additional, like apart from the fact that the supporting sentence develop the idea or develop the main idea. So if we understand that, hopefully we are going to do an exercise that help us clarify this. So let's challenge ourselves a little bit. If we go to the slide number 15, we have another one of these big paragraphs. Remember, I have been very emphatic in the fact of mentioning that the paragraphs that I'm using for the exercise are unnaturally long. Usually they are much shorter, but I am using this because of pedagogical and didactic reasons, so we can analyze all of them now. So this is going to be the last assignment for the week number 1, and it has 2 parts. Okay, it has 2 different activities that we require to do. The first one is this one in the slide number 15. Yes, it says identify and totalize the supporting sentences. So as you can see over there, it is a long paragraph. So maybe you have the 3 supporting sentences that I mentioned before. Maybe you have less, or very likely you have more, no? Because it's a long paragraph. So what you're required to do is to locate them. Yes. So you just simply cut and paste, and you are going to tell me the total. Yes. So after reading this twice or 3 times, you will say, well, teacher, with this particular paragraph has 7 supporting sentences, or 2, or 3, or 5. Yes. So take a look at them. It's very simple. This is mostly a task of reading, of comprehension. You don't really need to create that much. You're just going to simply identify that. Now, what do I recommend? That you find the topic sentence. Yes, even though I am not asking for this, the natural process will be like locating the topic sentence, verifying that is the one that sort of summarizes the content of the paragraph, and after that you will be able to select the supporting sentences. Okay, so let's do that exercise. That will be the first part of the assignment. Then here in the slide number 16, if you go over there, let's say until the previous slide we were verifying how to recognize them, how to identify them. But in this second part of the video, we're going to check some ideas to create supporting ideas, yes, or to organize them, these supporting sentences. So, as you can see, the first part of the assignment was to identify, so the second part will be creating. Okay, we're going to be always in this subject doing that, being able to receive by reading, by analyzing the reading, and being able to create by either writing or speaking. Okay, it's always going to be like 2 abilities that we will be constantly practicing throughout the course. So here there are some suggestions or some hacks in order to create or organize better supporting ideas. The first one is repeat keywords or phrases, right? So be careful with this suggestion, because when I say repeat, what I mean is that probably you can use one word like many times, but not specifically the same word, right? So if for example you're going to talk about the economic crisis, yes, like the paragraph that we discussed some minutes ago, so you cannot always, you can use more synonyms or similar words, right? You don't have to repeat all the time economic crisis. You can say, for example, economic issues, or something related to a recession or something similar, you see? So you don't have to repeat the same one. If you are going to talk about this problem with your houses, so you can mention housing, or you can mention something related to it. If you are going to discuss this thing related to the jobs, so you don't have to say jobs all the time, you can say employment, unemployment, all these different things. So the idea is repeated, yes, because you need to persist on the topic that you want to defend, but do not repeat the same word because that would be redundant. Okay, so hopefully it is clear. So you repeat the keywords or the phrases. You have to be consistent in the point of view, the verb tense, and the number. So one by one. Point of view. If you're going to write a paragraph that discusses the importance of a second language, for example, and you said in the topic sentence that it was very important, well, you cannot contradict yourself and say that, for example, that a supporting sentence would be translators are doing the same job that a teacher these days. So translators are doing the same job that a person these days. Well, that would contradict your idea, right? You're supposed to say that, or to defend the position of having English or French or any second language as important, and you cannot contradict yourself by saying that a machine does exactly the same job, right? This with any other topic that you come up, okay? So be consistent at the point of view. In the verb tense, this is very important. Probably you don't realize, but especially in the semester that you're in, many people have this little mistake of combining a lot of different tenses, right? So you start with present, and then the next sentence is past, and then the next sentence is future, and then you come back to past, and things like that, right? So try to maintain a single tense. I understand that, for example, there may be variations in the same tense, right? So let's say that you start with present simple, and if the occasion requires, you go to present continuous and maybe present perfect, right? But at least you stay in a single tense. Now, if it's completely necessary to go to the past, we'll do that, but or to the future, but make sure that it is because the text demands it, and it is not because you are careless. Okay, so that will be the verb tense, and then we have the number. The number is also really important. Okay, normally informal texts or informal paragraphs are written in first person, so you yourself, I was, I am, I will be, and more formal ones or academic ones tend to use third person, he, she, it, they, right? So you're an external observer, sorry. So do not combine them unless it is totally necessary. Many times you can write a whole essay in the same person using the same pronoun, either I, they, he, you, well, etc. But make sure that you don't need to combine them, okay? And then use transition words or phrases between sentences, right? So there are a lot of different transitional words, connectors, and similar things that we are actually going to observe in a moment. And the idea is that in order to avoid that the communication may be very interrupted or telegrammic, so you require these words in order to make transitions between one idea or the other, right? So let's take a look at the next two slides. Here I will briefly provide an example, at least of the category, right? So we have here 4 transitional words, well, groups of words, to show addition, to give examples, to compare, to contrast, right? It is very common, especially on certain semesters, that we are very dependent of a single word. So to show addition, we say and else, yes, besides, also, and then we just repeat them. Here we have a lot of different ones. You see again, and, also, besides, equally important, first, second, furthermore. So all of these words may be useful when you require to say something more, yes, and you are adding some information to your idea. To give examples again, so it's very common that we use all the time, for example, right? So here we have some other ones, such as for instance, specifically, that is, to illustrate. Of course, you're required to adapt these. They are not necessarily interchangeable or exchangeable with, for example, but you need to adapt them in order to use them. To compare, when you're comparing an idea with another, a person with another, an object with another, we can use this. Yes, and that may be very useful for when you're having these sort of discussions or ideas. To contrast, so you compare them, but not to say that they are similar, but to say that they are different, right? That they have some sort of differentiation. So again, we have all these ones, although and yet, at the same time, but despite, even though, however, in contrast, in spite of, nevertheless, all these different ones, right? So hopefully these categories are clear. Let's go with the next ones. To summarize or conclude, these will be used mostly when we explain the conclusion part, so I'm not going to explain this one right now. But well, anyway, that may be useful for maybe some other subject that you have when you want to have the conclusion. Then to show time, yes, a very common thing is to say after, and then, and it gets repetitive, right? So we have all these different ones, after, afterwards, as long as soon as, at last, before, during, all these different ones. And then we have the final two categories: to show place or direction. Yes, let's say that some of them may be useful for specific places, or let's say literal places, and the other ones may be for figurative ones, when you're not talking about places but about ideas or positions in a hierarchy or things like that, right? So we have these ones, such as above, below, beyond, close, elsewhere, farther on, here, nearby, opposite, etc. Finally, we have these words, these transitional words or expressions, in order to indicate logical relationship, right? Like there is some sort of connection between ideas, or let's say phrases, people, or reasoning processes in our paragraphs, right? So we have accordingly, as a result, because, consequently, for this reason, hence, if, otherwise, etc. Right? So the idea is that if we're going to use three supporting sentences, we are able to connect each one of those after the period, for example, or maybe after a comma, or at the beginning of the sentence, or in the end, depending on what you write, with these transitional words. So the effect of transition goes smoothly, right? Like it's not like really a very harsh stop every time that you finish writing, or that you're going to start a sentence and they seem isolated sentences. Okay. Well, the final one that I'm going to ask you over here, and this will be the second part of the assignment number 3, is this one. Okay, so you're going to select one of these categories that actually you already did in the first assignment. I think it was the first, right? And then you are going to write 3 supporting sentences. Okay, remember to use transitional words and follow the suggestions that we sort of provided during this short lesson of the day, during this video, I mean. So, for example, let me give you a hand with the first one. So you're going to create 3 supporting sentences for the first topic. It says, for a paragraph expressing your personal opinion about abortion. Okay, so imagine that your opinion about abortion is that you don't like it, that you don't think it should be legalized, that you think that it's not correct, that it's not adequate, right? So you're going to write 3 sentences about that, right? That supports your idea, that supports your position, that it is not a good thing, or it shouldn't be allowed, or whatever, right? So let's imagine that one of your reasons is a religious one, right? Like it is only God who should be able to give or take a life, for example, right? Let's imagine that another reason is women are likely to have bad psychological consequences. Okay. The other one, and the number three can be what if people start having abortions, like that would be very expensive for the contributors, like we will have to pay for that, for example, right? I'm just making up these ideas, they are not my personal position, it's just to give you an example. So you see, one topic, the idea was a negative for the abortion, right? And three ideas that support that idea, okay, that support the topic sentence. So it's basically that you are going to do that, but additional to that, you are going to connect those ideas with the correct punctuation. So if you're required to put commas, or you're required to put periods, that's it. And also you are going to include the transitional words that are so important. Okay, so remember, you are only going to pick one of these four that you already know very well, because you already selected one for the first assignment. And later on you are going to write the three sentences. Okay, so you don't have to do three sentences for everything. No, you have to do only the three sentences for the one that you select. I remind you the categories. The first one is expressing your personal opinion about abortion, argumenting the importance of learning a second language, telling the story of your most recent family meeting, and finally describing your experience at the university so far until the moment. Okay, so those are your options. Hopefully ending this week you have been able to get to know the paragraph, some of the parts. We're missing one because that will be for the other lesson. Identifying topic sentences, writing topic sentences, being able to identify main ideas, expressing main ideas, and now identifying and also creating supporting sentences. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully you have no trouble at all doing this final assignment. And remember that if you have any question or something like that, do not hesitate to let me know. I will help you gladly. Okay, thank you very much, and see you on the next lesson, when we're going to discuss certain things about conclusions. Okay, thanks a lot. Hugs.